Hello, everybody. My name is Matt,
I'm Sonja.
and welcome to episode 2 of our Life and Podcast, a podcast where we tell our life stories in the hopes that somebody will relate to them. We did really well on our first episode with an astounding one viewer or one listener,
Whoa.
but we did listen to their feedback and my own feedback, and this episode hopefully will have better audio quality. This is a work in progress, and I have the shittiest equipment and knowledge of how to do this, so.
The equipment is fine.
But regardless, we are going to get Soldier on here, and we're going to go on to our next story that we have for you. And it's a story that maybe a lot of people can relate to. It's actually going to be the tale of how me and Sonja first met. But before we get into the story, I need a little preface here. So, one time when I was probably about 10, maybe 11 years old, I was riding my bike down Main Street in the hometown that we live in. And as I was riding my bike down that street, a car came out of an intersection way too fast for where they were coming from. They weren't even supposed to be driving down that particular road. And they ended up hitting me with their car. The damage I did to the car, I completely bent in the bumper and, for all intents and purposes, I guess, totaled the car. At least that's what they say. But me, I hit my head on a lamppost nearby, and I cut my arm open pretty good. All of a sudden, as I'm sitting there, bleeding from my arm, trying to sit down from a porch, a man comes up to me, and he wraps my arm up in his t-shirt that he was wearing that had Eric Cartman from South Park on it. And he was doing this to stop the bleeding. He asked if everything was okay, helped me out in general, stayed there, at least until my mother got there that I remember. And you might be asking yourself at this point, why am I telling this story? Well, this actually is going to play in a bit to our story a little later on. Anyway, Sonia, do you want to take it from the top here about when I first contacted you?
Do it first, whatever.
Well, start where you think you should start.
Alright, well, it was in June. I was about to graduate, and I was having very bad luck with relationships. I just got out of a bad one that lasted about 5 months.
If you couldn't tell, we just jumped ahead probably about 10 years. But go ahead.
But anywho's, I was just like, fuck men, I'm gonna live my life, gonna graduate, have fun, whatever. Well, my friend from his, my friend from like first grade onward that we talked on Facebook and stuff like that was like, oh, well, if you want to talk to someone, I know someone who's interested in you. I'm like, sure, I'm all game for friends. I'm not sure if I want a relationship. She's like, okay, cool.
And to preface this particular part, the friend in question is my little sister, but that's besides the point.
So yes, it was her. I knew it was her brother because he tried talking to me before with our mutual friend, and I was just like, I'm in a relationship right now. I don't know you, whatever. But at this point, I was just like, you know what? Why not?
Well, this started for her in June, as she said. For me, it actually started a few months earlier, probably maybe around December of the previous year.
I thought it was February, March.
Honestly, I can't remember anymore.
I think you were up in February, but you were up for like a month.
Because the mutual friend of which she speaks, I happened to just be creeping over his shoulder while he was on Facebook, and this gorgeous woman here caught my eye. I was just thinking to myself, hot damn, who's that? You know, hopefully trying to get introduced to her. But anyway, carry on, Sonja.
Well, it was on Facebook because, online, yay. Well, we started talking just like, oh, where'd you grow up? How many brothers and sisters you have? What kind of interests do you have? All that. And he threw in a little bit of flirting in there. Like, oh, maybe someday you can teach me kissing. And I'm like, oh, hell no.
So,
I mean, that happened a little later, but that's just some of the things he said. Like, oh, you have a nice smile or something like that. Like, really corny, really innocent. Sorry.
So at this time, my experience with women is,
Slim to none.
yeah, fairly slim to none. I had been on a few dates, and I think my state of mind right now, as far as dating as it was probably not great, thanks to a few incidents that have happened. I'm actually probably going to share one of them real quick because I think it is a funny story of the crazy redneck chick, as I'm going to call her right now.
Oh boy.
Uh,
I've heard this story.
the one that, I'm not saying where she was located, but she lived a couple towns over in a town that doesn't exactly have the best reputation for its people.
Smells.
It does kind of smell, actually. It's not even a joke. But me and this particular girl were talking for maybe a month, and we decided to meet up, but where she wanted to meet up was at her house. So, not thinking anything of it, just thinking it's going to be normal, everyday shit date that I've been used to at this point. We I went to her house, and the first thing that happened when I went in there was this overwhelming smell of ammonia. And her father, stepfather, I don't know who he was exactly, but he quickly shuts the door behind me. He's like, "Is anybody out there? If there's anybody out there, I'm gonna kill him." And he's like getting really sketchy and stuff. Find out they're growing marijuana here in this house. At the least, there's probably other stuff. And they were very, I mean, I hate to be an asshole, but they were white trash to the fullest extent. The mother there, right in front of me, they were watching some TV show, and she was messing around with her son, and she threw her like a baseball cap that she was wearing fighting with her son over. She threw it down her pants and told him to go and get it, which was fucking gross. And
I don't think I remember that part.
it, on top of that, there was people smoking weed all night. This guy that was clearly on some other drugs, sketching out, thinking someone was going to come murder us, and they basically, I don't know, they wanted to make sure I wasn't a snitch, anybody that would tell or anything like that. Ha ha, I'm telling now, but whatever. Um, they don't know who the fuck I am anymore.
No names. It's fine.
Even if they did, I'm pretty sure they don't even remember me after I left the door.
No.
Left. And you might be thinking why I didn't leave to begin with. Well, I was fucking stranded. I had no choice. If I was one town over, they picked me up, and I had no way to get in touch with anybody because I didn't have my phone on me. So I wasn't even sure, like, if the cops busted in or something during that time. I was pretty sure I would have been in trouble also just by association. And the girl also in question wanted me to go up to her bed the first night also. And not in the innocent sort of way, but kind of like the come sleep up here with me. And I was like, I'm good. I'll sleep on the couch.
I would have just walked home.
I wasn't able to sleep that whole night. And their couch, which I can't say much about because we've done the same thing, they had this wooden board under it. The only difference is that their cushions were like fucking pancakes, like literally just a sheet on a board. It wasn't a very fun
It's not even
night.
a couch. That sounds like a meth.
I 100% believe it was. They said they were growing weed. They were all fine telling me that, like they were almost bragging about it. But the smell in that house, I'm not a drug connoisseur. I don't know shit about it. But the smell in that house was pissy, like it smelled like cat piss. So I'm almost certain there's more going on there than just growing marijuana. Again, I don't know. That house could have blown up for all I'd known during that night too. So after spending that night in the meth flat, I wasn't too sure how I was going to. I wasn't so keen on the idea for a while of going after people I barely knew or I talked to over the internet. But like I said, when I saw Sonja's picture online, I mean that's all it took for me. So
Stopped in your
I
tracks.
guess I'm a simple man. I like a good, beautiful set of eyes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Anyway, back to the story. So we talked pretty much every day for like hours a day, like on Facebook Messenger and stuff like that. And about a month later, yes, yeah, about a month later, I had my graduation party. It was good, but the next day I was just feeling kind of low because a lot of people like left early, like from my party, and I did have fun at my party, but not as much fun as I wanted. So I was feeling down, and I decided to give Matt my number. Well, maybe that was before, because I think you had we were texting, but to actually call, you called like that day.
I hadn't called you up until that day, but I definitely had your number before. I had your number for, I'd say, about a month beforehand.
Yeah, we talked for like a week or two on Facebook, and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna be ballsy and ask you for your number." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, you can text me." I now thinking back onto it, I did miss that thing, but yeah, it was about a week or two after we were talking to Messenger. You asked me for my number, and then we texted, and texting we text like all day, every day.
And I don't know if it was that night that I called you the first time, or if it was the following night, but I remember staying up. I was at a convention in Baltimore, Otakon, and I stayed up basically all night talking to you, even though I already had like no sleep for that whole fucking weekend as it was.
Yeah, we were texting all night.
But I couldn't remember if I called you that night while I was still there with everybody else in the room.
No, you didn't call me until it was either the next day or the day after that, because I was just kind of feeling depressed and stuff like that, and you were trying to make me feel better, which was interesting. So I think that first night we talked for probably like 5 hours.
That was the first night, but there was
Yeah.
a night while we were talking, getting to know each other, where we ended up talking the whole night. I think I called you at like 9 or 10, and we hung up at like 6 in the morning.
Yeah, because you were determined to beat my record.
You tried telling that to a kid today. Hey, I talked on the phone for like 10 hours with with a woman once. They wouldn't even know what the fuck to do with themselves. So some of them don't even know how to use the damn phone. Damn kids, stay off my lawn. Anyway, what's going on?
Well, the point was, you after that first phone call, you would call me every night at around 8 or 9 o'clock, and we were talking for a few days to almost a week, where the earlier story comes in place.
At the time, though, can I just ask this? How aware was everybody at this time of me when you were talking to me on the phone for those hours and whatnot?
They knew of you because they asked me who I was texting, and I was like, oh, I think I told them before that too, but I was like, I do really like this guy, but he's like almost 4 years older than me, and I'm like, I never thought I'd go after someone that was more than 3 years than me. That like my friends all knew, because they were asking me and stuff, and I mean, I don't even know if they remember because my brother-in-laws were drunk and the other ones were drinking too. They weren't drunk though, but I remember I did tell them that I was talking to someone like, "Oh, be careful! You can't trust people on the online." I'm like, I'm seeing
I
pictures, but I'm
100%
pretty
agree.
sure.
I wouldn't trust me either.
Oh, shut up! But yeah, I told them a little bit, and then like, I mean, skip a little ahead. When you did ask me out, I told them that and stuff like that. We'll talk more about that.
So the reason I brought up that story in the beginning was during one of our conversations that I was having with Sonja. We were talking about something like scars that we got when we were children or younger.
We ever got stitches?
Yeah, ever got
broken
stitches or
bone.
anything like that. You know, as new couples do. But I had brought up to her the incident where I got hit by a car. And well, she knew a lot of details about that particular story herself.
Well, you were describing it like you said you were like 11 or something like that, and that you got hit next to the bike shop near McDonald's. And I was like, wait a minute, did a guy go up to you? Well, you said, oh, a guy came up to me. I'm like, wait a minute, was he wearing a Cartman shirt? And you're like, yeah, why are you psychic? And I'm like, that was my dad. Like, we were in McDonald's waiting for our food, and my dad's like, oh my god, some kid just got hit and took off running.
So yeah, well before we knew each other, I'm not even sure if Sonia knew my sister at that
Not
point. She could
really.
have.
I saw her in school, but I didn't know she was your sister.
But by strange coincidence, all those years later, I ended up dating the daughter of the guy who helped me out after my accident in front of the bike shop getting hit by a car, which was one of a few strange coincidences, as it turned out, between us. Because not only that, but turns out my older sister was involved in this story to an extent also, as she apparently was,
My
she
cousin.
dated Sonya's cousin, which is not exactly unheard of because we are in a small town. But what made it weird was the fact that we were watching one of her old home movies one time. She was just showing it off to me, and both my sister was in the movie herself, which completely surprised me. And they also mentioned my mother at some point in the same film. And to me, it was just very odd. This girl that I personally never knew up until, we started talking on the internet, just had so many connections to me and my family that I never knew of. To the point of even finding friggin' old videos of my
Hey,
sister
I'm
hidden
just as
away in her
surprised as
house.
you were. The only connection we had
Yeah, I
was
know.
your younger sister because she's the same age as me. We were friends.
So I mean, not much of a story, I guess, but we met obviously via Facebook. One of the few success stories I can say of somebody meeting somebody online. And to me, I'm not one that usually believes in these things like fate and
I am.
stupid shit like that, but in this case, there was way too many coincidences, and it just seemed very odd. And it kind of, I guess, added flavor to our relationship early on, just how connected we were before we even knew each other.
Yeah. I was just gonna
But
add, before you asked me out, we were talking for about 2 months, and then you're like, oh hell, I'm gonna do it, and you asked me out. It's like, okay.
and then getting cheesy again. We'll talk about real quick the first day that we actually met in person because we were dating, if you want to call it that, for about 2 months online. But then I moved up to New York again, and when I did, one of the first things I did within the week that I came up here was I met Sonja. And quite frankly, it actually had all the trappings for a second of my trip to go because I was completely at the mercy of being picked up and brought to your house by people I didn't know, and I wouldn't have had any way out once I got there. So, in the off chance that did turn out to be a disaster, well, apparently I never learned my lesson. But I actually it went very well. I remember being exceedingly nervous when I saw you come out of the car. Probably more nervous than I've been for at least that kind of thing at any point in my life. Thinking how beautiful you were and just I couldn't believe you're real almost, just because of how myriad of a background I have with women and how bad of a track record I've had. And even though it was kind of sort of not really a date, that first meeting was probably without question the best
Yeah,
meeting I had the
I
first time
have
I've been with
very
a woman.
vivid memory of everything that happened that day. I was nervous too. I had butterflies in my stomach, but I was like more excited, and I was like, "Oh, what are people gonna think?" Blah
And
blah.
then you gave me my first kiss there, where it was literally my first kiss because I hadn't kissed anybody ever besides, my parents, but that don't count. And I didn't even realize what happened at first. I thought I
No.
completely biffed it, but
Well,
uh,
that's how I knew I really, 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 really liked you because I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna kiss you on the first date or whatever," and I did.
yeah. And I wasn't expecting it either because she told me to close my eyes and just kind of came in for the kill. And I was like, whoa, wait.
Yeah, but as soon as I did that, you're like, "Wait, let's try it again."
Um, but people love good love stories or whatever, but they like bad ones too. So to kind of add a little flavor text here, flavor text. That's a fucking Magic the
Go
Gathering
on.
term. To add a little flavor here, I think we should talk about maybe some bad experiences, bad dates. If you have anything funny to even add with that, I know I have two stories for that, but
I don't really.
I literally had never had anything that resembled success on a date prior to that. And my dates have actually turned out to be kind of weird, honestly. Besides one with a girl, probably my first date I've ever went on was with a girl up here. And the date itself seemed fine, but at the end she was like, "You should really talk to my friend. She'd probably like you." Which is like the biggest kick in the
Why would
balls you
you?
can give somebody.
Wow.
One of the worst dates I went on was this girl that had given me her number while I was working at the convenience store in Louisiana that I worked at for a while. She gave me her number. I called her. Again had no idea. I was pointing out how oblivious I was. The girl came up to me in the store and she said, "Hey, do you have any paper, like a blank piece of paper?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Well, I need a pen too." I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a pen on me. Well, how am I supposed to give you my number? Like, I was like, huh?
I probably would have been the same way, like, excuse me?
Well, I've never had a girl go after me in any context, but apparently this was one of the few times. I know I had a friend that was really into it. He thought she was good looking, I guess. I can barely even remember her now. But we went on a date, and we went to like a McDonald's, and it got awkward just based on age. It ended up she was like fucking 35, 36, like
Weren't you only
way
like
older than I
18
thought
at
she
the
was.
time?
And I was only 18, yeah. And she thought I was older than I was, and I thought she was younger than
I
she
thought you,
was. And I felt more insulted,
yeah. You,
obviously.
you always have ages. I mean, yeah, you're of age, but it's like, a lot of age gap.
Yeah, it was a decent little age difference, and granted, age just a number, whatever. But I think it made the whole thing more awkward. Besides, it was a date at McDonald's. Who the fuck does that?
We have.
Not counting people that are probably in a relationship for a long time or like much younger kids. I don't know of anybody that's like, I'm gonna try to impress this girl by
Yeah.
getting her a Big Mac. The other one, this girl is still on my friends list, so hopefully she don't get too pissy about me sharing this story. But we went on a date, and the first place we went to was a Quiznos sub, and that was one of the worst fucking meals I ever had in my
I believe it.
life. And, and I've never wanted to go anywhere near Quiznos since. I don't think I have, but they burnt. They didn't even ask if I wanted to toast it or anything, and I fucking hate that. I hate toasted subs. And then they, what are you laughing at over there?
Nothing.
But they toasted the sub. I know nobody gives a shit about my sub preferences, but they burnt the shit out of it. And then like it's when they asked me, they asked me if I wanted like mayonnaise or oil or whatever on it, and whatever the fuck they put on it was neither of these things. It tasted like ass. Anyway, yeah, terrible meal. But in the middle of the meal, we get a call from the girl's mother, and or well, someone that's close to the girl's mother, and said that her mother had actually gone to the hospital while we were there. So we rushed. Our meal wasn't done, but we rushed. We left that place and we drove to the hospital that we thought it was in. And as we get to the hospital and go inside, I'm sitting there waiting because I didn't even want to go with her because I knew it was like a family thing, but it would have been easier and quicker to just go there, so we did. We're in the wrong hospital. Her mother's in a hospital 2 towns over. So we get back in the car, and on the way through, we go back to my house because my house was on the way in this case now, and she drops me off. And when she dropped me off, I was thinking about trying to give her a kiss, hug, and be like, okay, yeah, good luck or whatever. But the whole time I'm trying to have this private, intimate moment. My neighbor, my next door neighbor, is sitting there in my yard fixing a car for some reason, just going while he's looking through our window, and I'm like, this ain't gonna work right now. Bye.
My question is, who
It was just so
would
fucking
look at,
awkward.
like, young people like that? That's disturbing.
I don't even know what the hell he was
It's an
chewing
old
either.
man. It's chompers.
Like I knew he didn't use tobacco or anything, and I doubt an old man like him was chewing gum. I could be wrong. I actually don't
Yeah,
think he had
exactly. That's
teeth.
why he's
But
chomping. He's
yeah, yeah, I don't think I have any more. But I've never been on a date that I would consider good up until I met
I never
you.
really went on a date, to be totally honest with you. The only things I could say is that I watched one of the Twilight movies with my sisters, and I brought along my boyfriend at the time. They're like, "Well, it was supposed to be girls' night." I'm like, "Well, whatever." But the thing was, I don't know, it's just kind of weird because we were like by ourselves, and like my sisters and stuff were behind me. It wasn't that bad, but it's still a little weird. And we spent the night at my sister's house that night. Nothing happened. And the other thing I've had bad experience with is that the same boyfriend that I'm talking about, well, ex-boyfriend, didn't really know how to French kiss, and
Well, I didn't either. I actually thought that my big cow tongue would fucking choke you if I ever tried, so I never did for a while.
yeah, but this one was bad. It was like my whole face was.
I hope I gave you listeners a good visual there.
Well, I was just gonna say my whole mouth and stuff was like wet. I'm like, that's not supposed to be. It wasn't like that. Yeah, but bad like real dates and stuff like that. I didn't really go on. Like my second boyfriend, no dates at all. We'd always just I went to his house. And he went to mine. That was it. But my first boyfriend, like the dates, if you can call them that, was like to movies once with my sisters, and we went to a diner with my parents. That was it. But other than that, an actual lone date, I didn't do it until I was with you. And our dates have been pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, I can't think of an actual date that's been bad. Granted, now if we go out to dinner or whatever, it's just going out to dinner.
It's more
But
joyous because our kid is a laughing riot.
yeah, but no, the closest thing to a bad date with you was when we got stuck in the
I like
rain
that though.
walking down that one street. But yeah, that ended up pretty good too. Well, soaking wet. I had to come up with something that would be bad.
I was just
If you
thinking
consider
more
it bad.
sleeping on the hard ass floor of your friend's house at one time.
I was used to it. Anytime I ever went to a friend's house, I always got the hard ass floor. Anytime I went to a hotel, I always got the hard ass floor.
Yes.
Just remembered Michelle. I'll let that name out, but just remember her having her one boyfriend there wearing the fucking cowboy boots just to try to be the same height as her. Michelle's already short. I gotta quit saying her name.
Beep.
Yeah, can I add a beep? But anyway, I know that this was all over the place. I apologize for that, but I think it was a fun little conversation looking back at when we first met and the blossomings of our relationship. But trust me, there are way more stories as it concerns our relationship to come. I hope that you guys that are listening found something here that you can relate to. Everybody's had terrible dates. Everybody's dated the guy in the big cowboy boots. But until next time, what are we doing next
Probably
episode?
our wedding. Or like everything leading up to that. Moving out on our own, wedding, then baby.
I think we should try to cut it a little bit. Maybe do something like intersperse these between other episodes or whatever. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure out whatever the next episode's going to be. But we hope you join us for it regardless.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye. Oh shit, I forgot to stop it.